The Sketch Before Bed, page 27, BOS. The Sketch Before Bed, one of the many pages of the Book of Sorrows, a legendary sketchbook that emerged in France sometime around the 18th century, created by the unnamed apprentice of the immortal alchemist Nicolas Flamel. What made the Book of Sorrows special is that each of the 1,000 pages has a unique property or ability. Each drawing can grant the owner either blessings or curses based on the page used. Then, word about the book got out, and the resulting riot killed over 100 people, the unnamed creator of the book amongst the bodies. As for the book, well, the binding was destroyed, and each of the pages were scattered all over the world. Those pages, impossible to destroy, either by flame, water, tearing, or even acid, have found places in the hands of many. People have searched for the pages, have killed for the pages, and have been victimized by the pages. And so the agency took it upon themselves to collect as many pages as possible. With hundreds of years of agency efforts, there have only been 100 pages collected. Today's report goes into detail about the properties of page 27, The Sketch Before Bed. The drawing was located in New York in the year of 1931. It was the height of the Great Depression, and many people lost all they had. This included many wealthy families who suddenly found themselves selling everything they owned to make ends meet. One such family went bankrupt and had their home set onto the auction block. Art, rare books and furniture were included in separate auctions. Page 27 was used as part of an illustrated copy of one of Oscar Wilde's books, The Picture of Dorian Gray, as a hunting visual reference of Mr. Gray. Someone did end up buying it at the auction, being a fan of Oscar Wilde and wanting the book for its rarity value. That night, they paged through the book, looking at the illustrated events, when they got to page 27, and they saw the sketch. Before their eyes, the sketch twisted and warped until it looked just like the owner of the book. Shocked by the change, the person dropped the book and tried to forget about what they saw, kicking the book underneath the bed. The next day, that person died, or, by all accounts, they should have died. See, they were busy going over the events of the prior night and not paying attention to where they were going. That was when a runaway horse, frightened by a misfiring car, crushed the young man, trampling his head into the ground with a powerful hoof. The weight and power of the horse in being sandwiched between the hoof and the hardened cement should have popped a man's head like a watermelon. That he stood up with just a dirty horseshoe print on his face was a miracle. To avoid questions, the man quickly escaped the scene and went back to his humble apartment. By the time he made his way home, it was already pretty late. As he got to his bedroom, something in his head told him to take a look at the book. So, reaching under the bed, he picked up the book he recently acquired and turned to the page he looked at before. It was the same self-portrait of himself, only the skull looked completely crushed. As the clock changed to midnight, he saw the drawing slowly revert, undoing the damage until it was in perfect health again. For the young man, it was proof that the world was much stranger than he had ever known, that the things he grew up reading, dreaming about, could be more real than expected. And it was with the age of page 27 that motivated him to go out and discover it all. Getting that book completely changed the direction his life was headed in. But first he had to figure out how his new prized possession worked. Painful testing, taught him the rules of page 27. The way it worked is that it would protect the young man from death once a day, as long as he doesn't die twice before the stroke of midnight. Anything that would have killed him will not work. The damage done to him would instead be done to the portrait in the book instead. Another thing is, after each death, he has to look into the book, or more precisely, the portrait of himself at least once a day, to acknowledge the damage that would have taken his life. Around midnight, the page will reverse all the damage done, and once again, the man has the protection to his life. Another test that he did, that he really didn't want to do, was trying to destroy the portrait. And to his relief, he found that he couldn't damage page 27. Burning, ripping, wetting, twisting, anything that could damage the page failed, so he wasn't like Dorian Gray. And lastly, even if he did not die that day, any minor injuries, page 27 would take upon itself and reverse. Tests done, and having nothing in his life holding him back, the man packed up his life and set off into the wide world, determined to look for more of the mysteries that suddenly broke his understanding of reality. He ripped the page out of the book and stuffed it into a locket that he wore around his neck. He's already tested it and even folded. As long as he takes a glance at even a part of the portrait, the ability will work. So the man traveled by foot, by car, by plane. He traveled everywhere he could, picking up skills and languages as he encountered more of the real world. He was stunned by how close to the surface everything was, that it's really just blind angles and lucky chance that kept the house of cards from toppling over. Because as he experienced both the beauty and horrors of the anomalous world, he knew this, that the public would not be ready for the truth like he was, and he needed a get-out-of-death card in order not to lose his sanity about it. His travels and his actions didn't go unnoticed. In fact, due to his good nature of helping out people who find themselves in danger or in too much over their head, he came to the attention of the agency, not just because he was a human who was exposed to the truth and decided to help protect that fragile barrier, but also because the man hasn't aged in the 10 to 12 years he was traveling. It appears that page 27 considered the damage aging naturally did to the body was an injury. The man didn't notice until the agency recruiter that caught up to him pointed it out. He had been having too much fun living his new life to notice something like that. Something about the recruiter triggered the man's instincts. The ones that made him look under his bed after his near death. The ones that made him go to that auction one summer's day. The ones that have saved his life the rare times he was actually in danger of dying twice. Those instincts made him tell the agent what he had discovered those years ago. And in that revelation, the agent shared a secret with him too. They too had an encounter with a special page that changed their life. And the agent explained about the Book of Sorrows and how the pages were scattered all around the world. They went further and asked the man if he would join them in their mission to protect the innocent. The man didn't hesitate to answer and he joined the agency. His experiences and the skills gained from his travels let him rapidly move from junior agent, and he became the 5th senior agent to take the name of New York. That New York is still active to this day. He hasn't aged from the moment he opened that book. He's also in charge of one of the larger agency regions in the United States. He is the expert on most of the pages of the Book of Sorrows, having taken great risk over the nearly 80 years he's been active, able to acquire over 30 pages of the book. When asked how he could stand to stay alive so long, he smiles at the person who asks the question and just says he's one of those types who just stays young at heart. Plus, French magic pages, keeping me both physically and mentally healthy.